again finds himself taking half a minute of a breather here, but Fool not too long for this world as well. Oh no!
So, this is a part 2, and you should watch the other part first because I'm getting straight to the point with this one. KO is pretty simple in this game. All you have to do is knock someone into the edge of the map and they are gone. Unless the game decides to give them plot armor for whatever reason.
What happened?
However, you can't knock people out on the corners. Most of the time. Players have stagger, and when it's depleted they become staggered, and will take a lot more knockback from all sources, making them much easier to push into an edge. But it's important to remember that you don't need to be staggered in order to be knocked out. If you take any knockback while on the edge of the map, you are gone, which is half of the game plan of some characters. KO maps are the ones where people get KO'd a lot. Very deep analysis, I know. They are also the maps that are often a lot harder to pass to teammates on, because there is usually something in the way, or you have to position in ways where the best option is just to keep pushing the core forward. You'll either win the barrier, or explode. And if we're talking about maps where people's stagger just disappears. Welcome to Demon Dais, formerly known as Music Stage because, well, that's exactly what it is. This map has always been weird, especially when it was added, because it would just make all of the audio really crunchy for no reason. It's mostly known as the map of pure chaos and suffering, where the main objective is just to suffer less than the enemies. It has one barrier that has to be hit twice to disable, and the gimmick of these sound waves that start after a single barrier is taken, which pushes anything in them outwards away from the edge. Because of these and how big the barriers are, people are forced into the center of the map or into one of these attacking chokes around the barrier. When most of the game is in the same place, it is really hard to tell what will happen, and a lot of damage will be dished out, which is why this is one of the most KO focused maps in the game. Squishy characters are often not recommended, as they will just be melted after being forced into a position they don't want to be in. But people can get good at understanding the chaos. Or you can play X or Vice, who have huge damage in AoE attacks, and probably win the game that way. Despite how big the barriers are, they are still easier to defend than Atten's barriers. You just have to stay alive to do so. This map is fun if you like killing things, which apparently a lot of people do.
Let's fucking go!
And to be fair, at least on Demon Dais you have a chance to dodge some of the damage, and you can afford to take hits. It sure would be silly if there was a map where getting hit anywhere near the middle could kill you instantly. There is no explanation for this map existing, unless Ai.Mi can go back into the app and also take people with her just to play Core Strike, or it's digital clones of the strikers. The barriers are pretty small on this map, so they aren't that difficult to defend. Plus you can do some cool clears down the back. It's all pretty normal until you get to the gimmick, the pit. The core bounces off it, but that's not the interesting part. This is the only map in the game with a KO zone that isn't on the edges, making killing on this map trivial if your opponents aren't paying attention. And if you somehow stay alive long enough to get staggered, then you are probably not recovering. But it gets worse. I haven't talked much about characters on this channel yet, but allow me to introduce Rasmus. He's okay. He's not overly weak, but he's not OP either. Until we get to Ai.Mi's app. See, Rasmus has an ability called Death Touch, which pulls anything it hits towards Rasmus with the most knockback an ability can have, tied with Vice Ult. It usually can't kill people by itself until the enemy is staggered, or if you play super risky by being right on the edge yourself. Unless of course there happens to be a giant hole right between Rasmus and his target. Rasmus can reach across the pit and drag anything it hits into the pit very consistently. We call this fishing, so he is almost always banned on this map, for he has violated international angler laws. Julie isn't much better though. She can also punish people close to edges very easily. This map also has its own broken awakening, Knife's Edge, an awakening that gives you a bunch of extra speed and power whenever you are near a KO zone. I feel like I don't have to explain this one. You can also still utilize the fact that the core bounces off the pit if you want to go for some crazy angles to score or to pass. But if that's what you think is fun, then I have another map to show you. I know I said there's barely any lore explanation for Ai.Mis, but there is actually nothing on this map. It's just a market at night where people play sports. Night Market is the map where nobody knows where the fuck the core is going, and people will score off of the strangest of angles. These two blocks in the center are where all the fun is. Because the corners are rounded, you can bounce the core off of them at pretty much any angle.
What is a bounce?
Good luck trying to be precise with it though. This is also where the infamous Night Market angle comes from. Goalies hit the core into the block and end up with it headed straight back towards their own goal. Between the blocks is the main gimmick, the speed strip that gives whatever touches it a speed boost for a bit, and respawns every 4 seconds. This is a pretty fun mechanic if you are midfielding or brawling, as you can reach where you need to be way faster, whether that be next to your goalie to help or in some enemy's face. And speaking of, this map is great for brawlers, because people are often always in the same lane, meaning you can lay on crazy amounts of damage while they are near you, and use the speed boost to chase them down. Personally, I've never really been a fan of these barriers though, but that's probably just me. This is also one of the best maps for taking both barriers at once, which I think is pretty neat. But if I had to give an actual reason to like this map, it would be that this is holy ground, home of the single greatest clip to ever come out of EU, and maybe OS in general. And while we're on the topic of maps with cursed angles, the home of Mako and floating above a temple dedicated to the Demon King of all things, and also EU's favourite map for tournaments because of our unparalleled teamwork and communication. Taiko has cool barriers. It's actually fun to defend in the corners, because these cutouts can give you a lot more breathing room than it looks like, and if the forwards play well they can take both barriers at once using the middle, similar to Night Market. The truly fun part of this map however is the drums. When the core or a player is knocked into one, it will bounce whatever hit it away at high speed. The small ones on the edge have cooldowns, but the big one in the middle does not, which can lead to some silly interactions. The main issue with this map is how stupidly buggy it is. The most infamous I'm sure half of EU could say with me like a fucking pantomime: get manipulated. If you hit the core into a drum, there is a very small chance that the drum will just make it bounce backwards, sometimes straight into your own goal. Fun fact, I was the first person to report this bug, and it is still in the game because the devs apparently couldn't replicate it. So GG, I guess we just have to live with this happening sometimes. Like a lot of the other maps, this one is also good for KOs due to the reduced space, forcing people to be closer together, as well as that if you become staggered, you will likely not survive long. as being knocked into a drum while staggered will send you flying directly into a wall. Or you could hit another drum, which repeats the process, sometimes causing a chain reaction that will send you all the way around the map. And if you're super lucky, it might actually be helpful. Despite the flaws, I actually really like this map. It's very fun. But I recognize this opinion probably isn't shared with everyone.
I don't like this map! I don't like this map! I hate this map!
And now, only one map left. Oh. For some reason, all of the strikers are willing to be experimented on like SCPs, which, to be fair, when you have an actual alien super soldier playing in your local sport, it makes sense. And apparently there's no better place to experiment than Clarion Test Chamber, which sucks because I hate this map. Its gimmick is that it has 5 gimmicks. There are 5 variants of this map, and after each round it will randomly change to a different one that has not appeared in the current set. To put them simply, Project Bass Drop has big bumpers that bounce anything away from them, similar to Taiko bumpers. Project Expanse has an obstacle in the middle that, when hit, expands similar to an Atlas secondary. Project Maelstrom has the worst obstacles to play around, and a big sphere in the center with a stagger bar. The person that depletes it to 0 gains a huge buff, and it will lower all of their current cooldowns by 10 seconds. Project Obscura has 2 areas that deal large damage over time while you are standing in them, and if you run out of stagger, it reduces your speed by 90% until you leave. And Project Xeno has 2 similar areas that instead turn all strikers that enter invisible to the enemy team, briefly revealing them if they use an ability. The barriers on this map are pretty much identical between each of the variants, and I can understand why they'd want simpler barriers for the most complex map in the game, but it's just night market barriers again. They didn't even try to do something unique. Naturally, this map is a lot more difficult to learn than the others due to how varied it is, and it also is full of bugs which does not help.
Wait, what?
For example, on base you can be one-shot from full stagger if you hit a bumper at the wrong angle, and Expanse can visually not match where the circle actually is. Despite its dynamic nature, I still definitely had to put this map as a KO map. All of the variants make killing easier in some way, even ones you may not expect, like Xeno. The obstacles on Xeno are close enough to the wall that if you try to go through this way, you are in prime KO distance from the wall, and it certainly doesn't help that the enemy could be hiding in there, waiting for you. As I said at the start, this map is really not for me. There are way too many obstacles everywhere on most of the variants that make positioning and clearing just way too awkward most of the time. Some of the variants I do like, but most of the time you'll just end up playing on Maelstrom every set. Anyway. In part 1, I said that I didn't really like KO, which I realize is an insane thing for a Vice player to say. And it absolutely can still feel miserable for the ones being KO'd, don't get me wrong. But I've come around. Teams leaning into KO has the ability to turn some nearly unwinnable games around, cause crazy upsets, and give this game way more depth than just a weird air hockey game. And it can help lead to some insanely hype moments. From players getting a kill to make a comeback in a round, or someone clutching up after their team has been KO'd. However, you are free to ignore everything positive I say about KO as soon as you queue into Demon Dais. Hello once again, and thanks for watching. This video took a bit longer than I hoped, but at this point I don't know what I expected. Next one will definitely not take this long though. Probably. Subscribe to, I don't know, force me to make videos faster. For this video though, I have to give thanks to the KO wizard of this game, the guy that gets. He's been a massive help in sourcing clips, and if you want to see the most KO focused playstyle this game has to offer, then go follow him on Twitch. His streams are pretty fun. No random requests from devs this time. Aesop has started ignoring me after I randomly messaged too many times, which, fair,